Hey, welcome to Current Practice. My name's Ian. Are you a person who struggles with rumination? I know I used to be a person that struggled with rumination. I had a lot of dramatic things happen in my life I just couldn't seem to stop thinking about, even to the exclusion of, various good things that were happening in my life. And this happens to everyone from time to time, where, certain things happen in our life, and, it starts to cloud our view, where that seems to be all we can see. And I want to widen our perspective. I want to give you some tools. I want to give you a story that will maybe help you break the cycle of rumination. Because all rumination is it's like walking in the same circle over and over again, where you can't seem to stop thinking about certain things, right? Certain negative things. And so I have this little story, and it goes like this. So once upon a time, there was this man, and he was kind of lonely, and he was driving home from work. As he was driving home from work, he kept thinking to himself, if only I had a pet, then I would have something to keep me company, and I wouldn't be so lonely. And so as he's driving home, he keeps thinking about this, and eventually, he gets home and goes in the kitchen, and as he's preparing some dinner, he looks out his window, and what does he see on his front porch? There's a kitten. There's a kitten sitting on his front porch, and he runs out the front door, and he's all excited, and he's like, oh, this is good luck, I've always wanted a pet, and now I've got a cat to take care of. And, so he's so happy, and, this is good luck, right? And so several weeks go by, and he's raising the cat. He's so happy, and everything seems to be better than it was before, right? And then suddenly, one day, he goes to work out in his backyard. He opens his door, and the cat sees a bird or something, darts out the door. He goes after it, but to no avail, goes around the corner and runs off, and he loses his cat. And now he's all bummed, and he's like, oh, this is bad luck. Now my cat's gone, But, then he starts thinking, well, maybe, someone will help me find the cat. So he starts posting these pictures around town, posters around town, have you seen this cat? And as he's doing that, he meets this girl, and she's like, hey, I'll help you find your cat. And so the two of them are looking for the cat, and eventually they find the cat. The guy and this girl, they bond together, and they eventually, they start dating, and, now the guy is thinking to himself, hey, this is better than it was before, right? Because, now I have a cat, and I have a girlfriend, this is, really good, this is good luck, right? And so, a few days go by after that, he thinks, all right, so everything's working out. He goes, well, now let's go on a date, right? So him and this girl, they set up a date, and he drives over to her house and picks her up. And as they're driving to the restaurant, a car runs a red light and T-bones him and hits the car. And, he wakes up at the hospital, and he's like, oh, this is terrible luck, this is, just when things were getting better, now they're, terrible again. And so, he's laying in the hospital bed, he's ruminating, he's thinking about, just how bad everything is. And the doctor comes in, and she says to him, I've got some good news for you. Your girlfriend, she wasn't injured at all, she's fine. But I've got some kind of not so good, but also good news for you. And the guy goes, all right, well, tell me what it is. And the doctor says to him, she goes, well, when you were brought into the ER, they had to do a CT scan on you to see what the damage was. Because we thought maybe you could have had a spinal cord injury. So we did the CT scan to look at your spine. And as we were doing it, we noticed that there was a tumor on your spine. And the guy stops her mid-sentence and he goes, oh, that's terrible. He's like, oh, things are just getting worse. And this is terrible luck. And she goes, well, not so fast. She goes, because we've seen it, it appears to be very small and in a very early stage, and it's in a spot that's operable. So we're going to be able to remove it before it had its chance to metastasize. And he goes, oh, well, I guess that's really good news. And she goes, yeah, if we caught it any later, given where it's at, and the type of tumor that it probably is, it could have either left you paralyzed or even metastasized and killed you. And so he thinks about the events of his life that led up to that point, and he thinks, well, if my cat didn't run away, I wouldn't have, met this girl, and if I didn't meet this girl, we we wouldn't have gone on a date. If we didn't go on a date, we wouldn't have gotten in a car accident. And if we didn't get in this car accident, then they wouldn't have done the CT scan. And if they didn't do the CT scan, they wouldn't have caught this tumor in time, and I probably would have passed away. And so, he looks back on all these things, and each individual moment, some looked good, some looked bad, but really, in each moment, he couldn't truly judge each moment individually. He could only judge it in regards to how it all works together, right? And this is kind of like the difference between looking at a single point of light and looking at a constellation, right? Like when you look at a point, all you see is a single point, and it's easy to fixate on a single point, but you don't really know what that point means if you don't connect it to all the other points. And see, this is the problem with rumination, is rumination singles out a single point to the detriment where you're not even looking at all the other surrounding points, right? You can't see the big picture. And so, if we can just zoom out and instead of looking at events individually, start looking at them, how they all come together, we could break the cycle of rumination. Because rumination occurs when we can't stop thinking about one single point. And so this makes me think about a specific verse in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, where it says, "To everything there is a season and a time, to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what has been planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, and a time to love, a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace." And you'll notice, as it's going, it kind of does a similar thing to the story I was talking about, right? Where there's the seemingly good thing, then it's followed by the seemingly bad thing. And, you're like, well, is this good or is this bad? And to be truthful, you can't actually judge anything in the moment as good or bad. Like even things that seem good or even things that seem bad, you don't actually know until you put them all together, right? To put this in perspective, later on in Ecclesiastes it says, God makes all things beautiful in their time, right? And it's like everything individually it's like it's all these parts, and you just don't know what they do until they come together. And the Bible doesn't say that every individual thing that happens in your life is good, but it does say it can all work together for good, right? All the things together. In Romans 8:28, it says that we know that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose, right? It doesn't say each individual thing is good. It says that God can work all things together for good. And so when we ruminate, we're not able to see the things together. But if you could just zoom out, just take a deep breath and zoom out and start looking at all the different events, all the things that you think are good, all the things that you think are bad, and really see how all the gears turn together, how they all mesh, right? And so, rumination, it's one of those things that it can steal our joy, but that's only because we are not seeing the big picture. And we truly won't see the big picture completely until we're in heaven. None of us will see the entire picture on this side of earth. And that's something that we just have to trust God with, that we just have to be humble and admit that we won't know how everything comes together on the side of heaven. But until that day, we can try our best to zoom out and get a more accurate, more broader perspective on things. So, if you've enjoyed this video, and if you've enjoyed my other videos, make sure you like, and if you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe. If you've been struggling with specific things you've been ruminating on, if there's been ruminations that God has delivered you from, where you now see things clearly, drop it in the comments. I'd love to read your stories about how God has delivered you from those specific things in your life. So anyway, until next time, keep praying, keep practicing, and God bless.